Welcome to ModelSport, your 2-hour window into the world of RC. I'm John Beach. Folks, we have a jam-packed issue for you, and as usual, seemingly not enough time to get it all in. We follow up the Don Smith Giant Scale B17 as Larry has the flaps and the Robart retracts in operation. We have some dynamite footage of an awesome rocket-powered RC model airplane. And from Triple Tree, side of the Joe Nall and the Masters, some fellas are combining sports as they're using RC helicopters to do a little fishing. Then, in About Engines, we show you some of the tools we depend on to report results to you as we present Slimline's Zenoa G23 smoke muffler. But that's not all. OS Max's 46 is arguably the standard in the class, but can it be improved? We fit Saturn Hobbies of Australia's plasma liner and piston and the incredible ultra thrust muffled tune pipe and make more horsepower. There's more. Responding to our review of CSD's S400 race in the last issue, electric modelers wrote over 100 letters asking for more. So we bring you a change of pace in the beautiful KSJ 400 class Silky Wind. But first, many of you have written asking us to complete a helicopter build in a single issue. Up next, we review Thunder Tiger's Raptor. This inverted view of the Raptor is one that I quickly hope to get used to seeing. A little bit of history is in order. In the middle 80s, the Hirobo company stunned the RC helicopter community when they released the first all-plastic 30-size helicopter in an almost ready-to-fly version, and it was called the Shuttle. Then, responding to the competition, Japan's Kyosho company hired the F3C world champion, Mr. Taya, and asked them to do one better, and the result was the famous Concept 30. Dipping into the same well, Thunder Tiger's Mr. Aling Lai asked Mr. Taya if he could do it again, and the result is without doubt a world beater, the 30-size Raptor. This is the first RC helicopter presented to us that's available in an almost ready-to-fly or kit version, and the amazing thing about the Raptor is that it's suited for beginners and for those who want to learn 3D flight. This is kit 4830A, which means that it's supplied complete with the Thunder Tiger Pro 36H helicopter engine. And by the way, back in the MS0103, in addition to having world champion Kike Somenzini performing his awesome 3D routines with an RC airplane, we also featured the Thunder Tiger 36H, and it was a strong running engine, and it's the same engine fitted in our helicopter. What's in this box, it'll absolutely amaze you. I couldn't believe it when they told me that this thing came almost completely ready to just install the radio. I said, yeah, right. But take a look at this. Well, there's no easy way to get it out, but to just lift it out. And folks, look at this beauty. Now, to finish taking it out of the box, we'll need some side cutters because I use some nylon tie wraps to hold the helicopter within the base. And this is just excellent packing, and it's the reason that the model can come from halfway around the world and basically be in such good shape. And let's go ahead and slide this off and out of here. And we've got some things in there. And we've got the canopy over here. And I'll slide this out of the way. And the blades, oh boy, these look nice. And let's move this. Guys, we're at the stage where I would have taken a whole issue to show you how to build the helicopter to this point. Let's look at what we have. This is the collective mechanism, and we have the fly bar above the rotor head, And Mr. Taya appears to have just outdone himself. The fuel tank's in the rear, the way I especially like my RC helicopters to be equipped, because I can see the fuel level as it's going down. Glow plug access from the front. Nothing's going to interfere with it. This is really nice. The blades looks to be pre-built for us. And let me get this open and see. And they're pre-covered. The lead weight is installed. And the ends are put on. However, there is a supplement in the instructions that indicate that we'll need to put some CA underneath the blade grips. And we'll get to that later. Let's set them aside. This is tracking tape and some rotor blade instructions. Inside this end of the box we have, well, let's see, let's not force this, a complete boom assembly, and the drive belt is already installed, as is the tail rotor push rod and the fins. They're not kidding. This thing really is almost ready to fly. We're going to install JR's 652 series radio, and it'll take 5 servos, and it looks like we're going to be ready in not much more time than we've already spent. This is beautiful. Shading from yellow through orange and into red, the large sheet of supplied graphics are designed to attach to the blow-molded canopy. This canopy design is reminiscent of an F-16 fighter jet, and the material, it's nearly indestructible. Don't worry in a crash. The manual, it's absolutely beautiful. All of the graphics are computer generated. In addition to telling us about joining the AMA, and also what tools and equipment we'll need to finish it, the first few steps are those that we really don't need to concern ourselves with, because they've already been done for us. And by the way, all of these pictures, well, they're 3D generated, which gives me the impression that Mr. Taya designed the helicopter on a computer. That means that the fit, well, it should be flawless. We'll skip the first few pages until we get to the mainframe assembly of installing the boom on page 13. And then after we do that, we'll go to steps 16 and 17, the installation of the servos. But that's not all. In addition to a beautiful manual, Mr. Aling Lai, in recognition that a lot of guys were going to want to take this helicopter into 3D flight, well, he commissioned this beautiful drawing that has exacting specifications for setting the model up for 3D flight, to include pitch curves and values for the length of the push rods from ball center to ball center. Let's look at the helicopter a little more closely. The first thing I notice is that the helicopter is equipped with a muffler. And spinning it around, we can see that the fuel tank is installed, and we have the plumbing all the way to the engine. Folks, this is unusual. We even have the pressure fitting installed. Let's look at how some of the linkages operate. This is a collective mechanism, and it's smooth as silk. Let's see. Oh yeah, the aileron linkage, or the side-to-side cyclic, is this one, and there's absolutely no play in this. The fore and aft, or elevator linkage, is this one, and once again, this is smooth. There are 49 ball bearings installed on this helicopter. Every single point of rotation or pivoting has a ball bearing installed, and that is why it's so smooth and tight. For starting the engine, there's a hex coupler already installed, and this is an option on a lot of helicopters. That means I can use my beautiful KSJ start probe for starting the helicopter. Our next move is to install the tail boom assembly, and for that we'll need a 2.5 millimeter Allen, because we need to first loosen up the 4 bolts that are going to clamp the boom within the main frame. Then let's go ahead and turn it, and let's look at our boom assembly. The belt is running in the correct orientation, and I'm holding the boom assembly in my left hand, and I've got my right thumb through this loop of the belt. Now we got to give it 1/4 twist, and it's really easy. I just give it a thumbs up like this. It's a counterclockwise twist. Now I'll feed it through, and it can be just a little bit difficult to feed through. There it comes. And you'll notice that I've got a rubber band on the boom to hold the steadies so they don't flop around and get in our way. And I'll just start to push the boom into the frame, and it has some alignment guides, and there it is, perfectly aligned. It just goes right in. It's really easy until it bottoms out. Then I'll take the belt and I'll start to give it a rotation. And it's kind of like putting a chain back on a bicycle when we were kids. We'll just come around like this, and it's a lot easier than it looks. Sorry about this. And there. Now I'll pull the boom out a little bit and put some tension on it like this. And the right amount of tension is if you reach right in with your finger and push here on the side of the belt should move maybe 1/8 of an inch. You basically want the belt to be reasonably tight. Now we'll take the Allen and we'll screw these guys in to the nylon nuts. And this is a real nice point about the helicopter, in that we have 4 nylocks. Let me rotate this around. And they're molded into the frames so that I don't need to have a backing wrench. I can just tighten them up. Like this. Now I'll check the tension. Yeah, I'm getting about 1/8 of an inch where I can push it in. My next move is to install the servos. And while I do that, my friend Donnie Wright has an interesting hover game that he taught me for sharpening up my hovering skills. We'll see you in a few minutes. What did you find the biggest deal when you went into forward flight, Donnie?
Stopping. Forward flight, if you have any airplane experience, is just like an airplane. You have to use coordinated turns, meaning you use the rudder also. In this case, the tail rudder. And the only problem that I thought I'd have was getting it to slow down. And it actually wasn't that bad at all. am Donnie Wright. Right now you should be in the hovering stage and maybe seeing it gets a little boring. We got a little game here for you to try to break the monotony of hovering. Should help your hovering skills and not be quite as boring. Did it!
Okay, what's the biggest element of going into forward flight that scares you the worst?
Biggest element of going into forward flight that scared me the most was when I was coming around to put it back into a hover. Obviously from turning into hover, getting to forward flight by mistake, it was very simple, forward flight, just push the stick forward it goes. I wasn't quite sure how it would react when I tried to slow down, but after doing it once and my knees shaking, come to find out it was actually very simple. Just power and cycling. Try to fly it like an airplane and be smooth on it. If you have flown airplanes before, you shouldn't have any problem once your hovering skills are down.
What about if you haven't flown airplanes?
If you haven't flown airplanes, I'd recommend getting some help, or your videos.
Donnie, show us the ball.
The ball is a highly technical piece of equipment. It's a Dunlop tennis ball. Of course, it doesn't have to be Dunlop. Cut in half. Where I used to fly, we had an asphalt runway, so I had to put a little weight in it or the helicopter would blow it over. On grass runway, it shouldn't matter. Piece of nylon, bent over with a little heat at the top. I kept it short enough so I wouldn't be in the rotor system if I landed beside it, and that's the highly technical hovering tool. Build one, you'll have fun.
Step 16 in the instructions for mounting the servos indicate that the side-to-side or aileron servo should have a piece of tape applied across the bottom to keep this wire from getting into the mechanism. I've got experience with what happens with a piece of tape after a few months if you're using a helicopter in the hot sun. And living on the coast of North Carolina, I'll guarantee you our climate qualifies. So I've used a pair of zip ties, and this is going to keep the wire out of the way of the mechanics. Now, an important thing when you're installing servos are these rubber grommets. When you install the rubber grommets, that's just the first step for isolation. The most important step is the installation of the brass eyelet. And these brass pieces, they come in from the bottom. And it's very important that they come in from the bottom, because what happens is that the screws, as they come in from the top, well, they'll work together basically like this. If the brass comes in from the bottom and the screw comes in from the top, then together they keep the rubber from being compressed. And you don't want to compress the rubber, because then the isolation properties, in other words, what's going to protect this equipment from the vibrations, well, it won't be working optimally. So it's very important. Brass eyelet, always from the bottom. Next, I'll go ahead and feed the wire on through like this. And a nice thing about this helicopter, and something I'm very, very impressed with, is the fact that all of the wiring, it is very clean on the right-hand side of the helicopter. Everything comes out on the left-hand side, and that makes it real easy to have a nice, neat wiring loom or harness. Let me go ahead and run a few of these screws in here. And you may be tempted to use the screws that come with the servos. You're better off using the ones that are supplied by Thunder Tiger. This is the one supplied in the kit. This tapered one is the one supplied with the radios. And then when you tighten it down, and this is real important, go just until it starts to touch the rubber and compress, and don't go any further than that. If you do, then once again, you're not letting the isolation work optimally. What I do is that I'll see that the screw head, well, it'll start to twist the rubber, and as soon as it starts to twist it, I back it off just a little bit, the rubber straightens out, and it's perfect, like that. The next thing is the installation of the battery pack. The nice thing about the XP652 is that it comes with a 4-cell, in other words, a 4.8 volt battery pack, but the capacity is 1100 milliamps. Most competing radios will come with a 1000 milliamp pack. That 10% extra capacity, well, figure it for yourself, it can save your helicopter. Something I especially like about the Raptor is that it comes with double-sided tape for mounting these pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and take my scissors and cut a couple of strips, and I'll mount the battery pack first. Now the instructions show the battery being mounted side to side like this. However, I prefer to mount it fore and aft, because that's going to put the weight just a sconce further forward, and that will help us with keeping the balance of the helicopter a little more towards the nose heavy as opposed to the tail heavy. And there's one piece, and now the other. There's really not much to this, but I'd like you to see all the little steps that we go through so that we end up with a nice and neat installation. And I'm going to route the wire down the side over here, and I'm going to keep the battery from touching. I'm going to leave it, maybe a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch of gap here between the front of the frame and the battery, so that it's not touching. Remember, the idea of the foam tape is to provide vibration isolation, and there you can move just a little bit. Next, it's the receiver, and this is worth mentioning, the R600 receiver. Look how tiny this thing is. It is approximately half the size of a standard receiver, for example, like what's supplied with our Futaba 6X. And this is a very, very, very nice receiver. It's not so critical on the helicopter, but on smaller models or airplanes, having a receiver this tiny, it can make a big difference. Now I will mount side to side like this, because my wiring loom is all going to come in from the side, and the ends of the receiver, well, I'll orient it so that it's like this. Since they've supplied us with plenty of mounting tape, then this time I'll just go with the width of the battery, and I'll cut a couple of pieces, but as it turns out, one piece is left over from the first strip, and it's already the proper length. Like that. And then one other piece, like this, and we're ready to install it. It's really classy of them to supply us with the tape. No other helicopter I know of comes with it. You have to buy this stuff. And let's go ahead and put it centered on the battery pack so there's no possibility of it touching anywhere here. And that's all there is to it. This is really nice. Next, I'd like to show you a little trick. Our friends at Dubro Products make this stuff called heat shrink tubing. And what I'm going to do is first feed the wire that is coming off the switch harness. And I'm just feeding it through temporarily. And we're going to use a piece of this heat shrink tubing over this connector that the battery is going to plug into. Because what we want to do is ensure that there's no possibility of this guy coming loose in flight. And I cut it just a sconce long, but that's not too bad. And we'll use a lighter and a little bit of heat. I could use a heat gun, of course. Ow. And you see it shrink down? And then let me rotate it, and we'll do it again. And the heat gun is really probably the better way to go, because then we don't have an open flame in the workbench. And as it takes a shape and molds itself, you can see that that'll never release, short of taking a sharp blade or an X-Acto and intentionally cutting it to remove it. Now I'll just go ahead and pull it back on through and proceed with the harness. And what we're going to do now is start to plug our servos into the receiver. A real nice feature of the Raptor is the gyro platform mounted back here behind the main mast. It's protected. I've installed a CSM ICG 360 gyroscope. This is a heading hold piezo crystal gyroscope, and it's an excellent choice for learning 3D flight, and of course it's perfect if you're learning. Our next move is to make up the linkages. A nice thing about the instructions for the Raptor is that the manual, in addition to giving us the exact length of all of the linkages, also includes a supplemental sheet. The supplemental sheet tells us the length of the linkages for 3D flight. I have a caliper, which is the perfect tool for making up the linkages. But if you don't have a caliper, then you'll need a ruler like this. What's handy to know is that although the specifications for all of the linkages are from center to center, that from the center to the inside edge is exactly 20 millimeters, which means that if you have to make up a linkage and the specification calls for it to be say 73 millimeters, then 20 and 20 is 40. Subtract that from 73 and we have 33, and that will be the dimension that we'll have to measure to. This little deal right here can save your fingers. It's made by Colt, but several different manufacturers make them. And I'll start the link with my fingers, and then I'll switch to this guy. And it may not seem like a lot of savings, but believe me, by the time you've made a helicopter's worth of linkages, you'll be quite happy. And we'll see what we have here is, well, it's still not quite short enough. And see our length. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Setting up the JR XP652 is duck soup. It's really easy. First thing we'll do is press the mode and channel keys, and that'll take us into the menus. The first thing we'll do is set the servo direction. That's either reverse or normal. Then we'll do the sub trim to make sure that the servo arm is square across the case in the neutral position, and that'll prevent unwanted differential throw. Then we'll do a travel adjust, or in Futaba speak, ATV. Finally, we'll get into adjusting the pitch curves. And the nice thing about the XP652 is that it has a 3-point pitch curve. We'll have an adjustment for our high-end pitch, another one for our low-end pitch, and this is really nice, we can set our hover value very precisely. Then we'll adjust our throttle for both normal and for stunt mode. Finally, we've got to remember to turn off the Revo mix because we're using a heading hold piezo crystal gyroscope and we don't use Revo with that. Let me tell you about a really neat feature about this JR XP652, and that's stunt trim. Normally, say with a 6X Futaba, when you set your trims so that the helicopter's hovering perfectly, well, as you engage your idle up and go into forward flight, you'll find that the helicopter won't track exactly right. So you'll make fine adjustments of the trims. The problem with that is that when you come back into the hover, then you're out of trim and you'll either have to be wrestling to get it back into position or you'll just simply have to fly it out of trim. The advantage that the XP652 has over the 6X are these stunt trims. And those are digital trims that are engaged as soon as you go into the stunt mode. Those are for the three primary flight controls, those being the side-to-side and the fore and aft cyclic and the tail rotor. This is a huge advantage. And we'll turn it off, make sure that my flight mode switch is in normal. We don't want to have a hot start later. Set the transmitter aside, and let me finish taking the plastic off. This is covered in the instructions, but I thought you might like to see how it's done. Basically, we'll remove the grips, and I've cut this plastic out of it. Next, we're going to take some CA, and I like thick CA because it gives me a little more time to do this, and it's a stronger CA. You'll have to do whatever the instructions call for on your helicopter. Some say CA, some say epoxy. I've been pretty satisfied with using the thick CA. And these guys, this one's going to go right here like this on the underside. We'll put some more on it on the top side now. And all I'm doing is making sure that I get all of the wood pretty well coated with this stuff. The nice thing about using the thick CA is that it's going to penetrate into the wood and it's going to take longer to cure. And we'll put this down like this, and don't touch it with your fingers unless you want to glue yourself to your helicopter. And then we'll go ahead and screw these guys back down. And they're going to squeeze these together, and some of this stuff is going to ooze out. And when I'm done here, what we're going to end up doing, you see how it oozes out just a little bit? Get it good and tight. Good and tight. Now I'll put them in the grips, and the grips will squeeze down also. But before I do that, let's seal this end. I'm using this CA basically to prevent any moisture from getting in the blades through the wood, because that could affect the balance. And then I've got a little piece of napkin, or in this case a Kleenex, and I'll use it to wipe off the excess. Now, a nice thing about the Raptor is that it's equipped with 4mm blade bolts. And these are more commonly found on a 60 size helicopter. A lot of 30 size helicopters will use a standard 3mm blade bolt, but because Mr. Aling Lai anticipated that some guys would be spinning these things way fast and doing 3D, he specified a much heavier bolt, because when you go from 3mm to 4mm, let's see, you gain a lot of strength. Now I'll go ahead and tighten these down perhaps a bit more than normal. I'll loosen them. You know that the right amount is only when they won't swing. And I've squeezed out some more here, which I expected. And there we go. We're about set here. Now let me show you a couple of tips about the Raptor. Number one, the fuel tubing inside the fuel tank. I've replaced that with a medium fuel tubing, because I've heard reports from the field that the thin stuff that's supplied with, which is extremely flexible, has a tendency to not last very long if you're using 30% nitro fuel, which I like to use. I like Wildcat's 30%. I mean, it's the heat. The other thing, oh, by the way, you've got to make sure that you don't do flippy-floppy maneuvers until this stuff's been exposed to that for a while, because it'll get soft enough and then it'll flop around just fine. The other thing is these screws right here, the boom steadies, both going through the frame and back here where the horizontal fin is, have been reported to be a little bit long. And when I checked, mine were that way also. So I used my Dremel Multi-Pro with a cutoff disc, and I took off about a 32nd of an inch. Not much more than the width of the blade itself. So basically, I'm about ready to finish this up. I'll put the canopy on it, and we'll take it to the field, and we'll see how it goes. At just over 6 pounds, the Raptor is the lightest of the 30 class helicopters, and it's a superb handling machine. If you'd like to learn more about hovering and radio setup beyond the scope of this issue of ModelSport, our program RC Basics Hover goes into far more detail on how to set up JR's XP652 to include a 3D switchless inverted pitch curve and a V-shaped throttle curve. You know, there's a few things that you need to know, though, about the helicopter. In Volume 1, Number 3, we broke in the 36H Pro ABC engine, and it was easy because it had this drive washer. However, the 36 Pro fitted to the helicopter already has the clutch mechanism bolted to it, which means that the break-in and the first flight will coincide. Few things will make it a lot easier. To begin with, the fuel. I like Wildcat 30% heli mix, and that's 30% nitro and 18% high-quality clot synthetic. And what I especially like about Wildcat fuel is that those guys basically, they don't keep any secrets from us. They tell us exactly the oil content and the nitro content and who makes the oil. Those things are important to me. Next thing is how to set up the engine so that you have a good, successful start. To begin with, the main needle on the carburetor is set 2 3/4 turns from the fully closed position, while the idle needle valve through here, there's a real neat way to set it. It's called the T-pin method, and I use a big T-pin, and I put it down through the carburetor throat, and I close the barrel and squeeze it down, and that's leaving a gap that's about like what you would encounter when the engine is idling. Then I'll take a piece of fuel tubing and put it on the fuel nipple, and I'm going to blow. And what I'll do is I'll take this screwdriver and I'll close down the idle mixture screw until I can't blow. Then I'll back it out about 1 turn, and that'll be close enough to start. It's real easy. Right there, at about 1 turn, I started to get some flow. That's going to be just about perfect. Learning to set up and hover RC helicopters has never been so easy. RC Basics Hover Your Helicopter is the flight training video that will help you. From what an experienced modeler will look and watch out for through radio setup and onto the field, this video is loaded with tips. Next, since flights start and end in a hover, you'll learn the steps to master both basic and advanced hovering. In addition to featuring Futaba's 6XH for setting up Kyosho's neat Nexus, Hover also details how to use it for setting up Century's fabulous 46 class Falcon. Then it's on to JR's awesome 600 series as we detail a setup to perfectly suit Thunder Tiger's Raptor, including a 3D switchless inverted pitch curve and a V-shaped throttle curve. That's not all, as we use the versatile JR radio to set up Mikado's technical tour de force, the 46 size electric logo. And for you scale aficionados, wrapped in the stunning Robinson R22 fuselage, it's JR's incredible Ergo 46 with a CCPM setup. Available through your hobby dealer or direct, ask for RCB 002. It's easy to solo your helicopter. Model helicopter technique, dedicated to the advancement of pilot and machine. Not familiar with MHT? Look at recent issues, where you can surf some samples of this quarterly and browse the contents, including the famous 22-point check of subscribers' machines, including featured pilots. In this case, Oklahoma's Mark Kiner and his inverted Roby Futura. You can even subscribe online. Don't miss a single issue. Only $20. Act now. Next up in Hot Shots, it's some friends of mine from Panama. Fabian Schwartz and his brother Ricardo have crafted an unusual model airplane that's fueled by a screw-on bottle of propane, just like that used by a plumber. Featuring of all things a homemade pulse jet similar to that used by the Germans for their V1 buzz bombs, the engine is mounted above the model to protect it from the intense heat, which explains those aluminum heat shields. The propane mixes with air to create an explosive blend, which is ignited by a spark plug on the ground. As Fabian calculates the entire thrust of the engine would be needed to carry the model aloft, he dispensed with throttling, and the propane passes through a hand-operated valve. The metal fuel line wraps around the combustion chamber, thus preheating the liquid propane and vaporizing it before it mixes with the air sucked in through these two intakes. Once in the combustion chamber, the exploding mixture is expelled, creating the thrust needed to propel the aircraft. Aided by another of my friends, Al Alguero, whose wife appeared on the cover of ModelSport Volume 1, Number 2, my three friends are having the time of their lives flying the red Bunsen Baron. By the way, can you guess what well-known model airplane this thing's based on?
No te preocupes.
That's a pretty interesting model airplane, wouldn't you say? You know, ultimately, the sport is about having fun. Up next, Greenville, South Carolina's Kirby McKinney and Mike Gregory are better known for their dedication to Pat Hartness-hosted giant-scale events like the Joe Nall and, of course, the prestigious Masters. Recently, my friend Eric Myers invited us to Triple Tree, that mecca of aero modeling where the best of the best get together. But it wasn't for one of the world-class events these guys are famous for. Instead, it was for a spot of fun.
This lake's so beautiful, Eric, we ought to be doing a little fishing. Well, let's do a little flying. Maybe we'll do a little fishing, huh? behind the helicopter, Eric. Well, we got a little something here. See if we can combine sports.
Try it without the bottle first.
Alright.
Before you come and get it. Pull that trunk down, my glass is laying back here.
What you got, Kirby?
Got a little white grub.
Oh, boy.
Little plastic grub.
I'll wait for you. That is called helicopter fishing. Mark, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. Yeah, amazing.
Ready, Kirby?
What's that, 5 miles?
I got one, Mark. Where'd that go? I just laid it out straight. Don't worry about it. Hang on.
Right through the hook, got to the water.
We're going to get caught up. The power of CCPM precision is going to catch us up here. Go. Over the coast.
What we're doing here is mixing two championship caliber sports, fishing and helicopter flying. We've got the crew from the Triple Tree, and this is how we relax and catch some lunch. Look at that.
One down, about 4 million to go.
Better check the fuel, Mike. Yeah, about out.
All right. There you go. That's a big one. Well, that's fun. It is.
All right, Mike, what kind of starter you got there?
Oh, that's a Sullivan.
Oh yeah, that's what I use.
One of the Sullivan Dynatrons. Got a Ergo 60 and a JR 10SX2 radio. The fishing machine.
The fishing machine.
The fishing machine.
Mike Gregory.
That's it.
Thanks, pal.
Thank you.
Sullivan's line comprises approximately 280 items. A lot of it is in the fuel tank line. We now make 61 different fuel tanks. Well-known products are the starters. We have our standard starter, which you see here mounted on a power pack, and that comes in a couple of different versions. Then a Dynatron, which is well known for its power, commonly used for engines over 60 size. And then the newest addition to the starter line is the Megatron, which is number 651, and those are for the very large quarter-scale engines.
Hi, this is Mike McConville, and this is my latest design, which is a Hangar 9 Ultra Stick. What sets this airplane apart from other stick designs is, one, the size. It's a lot larger than other sticks. This particular one is equipped with the new Cyto 1.8, which just provides phenomenal performance. Same high-quality construction, true Ultra Coat covering throughout. One of the biggest things with this Ultra Stick that sets it apart from most other sport airplanes is the fact that it comes with not only a standard configuration of 2 ailerons, but also an option which is included for 4 ailerons, a split flap pro configuration, which gives us the ability to do a lot more aerobatics than we were capable of with just a standard configuration. Particularly in the crow like this, the airplane becomes such high drag that really fun things are available with this airplane. Even straight down landing approaches where you pull out and land after a vertical landing approach. Really a lot of fun. Equipped with the Cyto 180, this airplane also has enough power and has enough control authority with rudder and elevator to make it an excellent practice airplane for learning hovering maneuvers and torque rolls and that kind of thing. And certainly a lot less intimidating than flying a high-dollar scale airplane to learn how to do that kind of stuff.
Larry,
Good morning.
you've been working on this wing.
Yeah, it's coming along slow.
What are you doing now?
Just finishing cutting out this little piece to get started to fit the fuselage to the wing.
Oh boy.
Just a couple more cuts and it's ready.
Cool. Oh yeah.
And then this part will all have to be fitted to the wing, of course.
Right.
You can see from the saddle roughly where it will be cut later.
Awesome. Larry, looking down through the length of the fuselage, I can see a couple of servos there. What do we got going on here?
Okay, this one works the rudder, and it has one of the heavy-duty nyrods.
Oh, that's
black
that
and-
Sullivan thing, carbon or something like that?
Right,
Ooh, that thing is big.
right. That's a
And
good
that's
heavy-duty one.
operating the
That
rudder?
works the rudder.
Oh yeah, we can see it.
Okay, and this one is just
The tail wheel, I guess.
Right. This steers the tail wheel. For now, the cords are just pulled through the arm.
Okay,
Just to keep them out of the way.
Ooh. Still have a lot to work to do here.
Right. Yeah. Some of this installation is just temporary while I was testing things.
Okay. Awesome amount of work. Well, I see you've really been busy with the wing. Tell us what's been going on. Wow, look at the size of this thing.
Well, I've got the sheeting on the top surfaces, and I've got the center section sheeted on the bottom.
Right.
And I was just finishing up doing some testing here, putting some wiring in to control the servos for the throttles and for the flaps.
Well, wait a minute. What's this little circuit board thing here?
Oh, it's just a little hex inverter chip, a 4069 chip, just to act as an amplifier to separate the signals going to all the servos, so I don't, since I have 4 throttle servos and 4 flap servos, sorry about that, I didn't want to tie all 4 together. This just separates the signals.
Oh, okay. So are we talking big money here?
No, those chips are about $1 a piece.
Oh, okay. Big money.
Right, yeah.
So I guess the theory is then that the amplifier takes the load and you just plug one plug into the receiver?
That's right.
Well, what's this little red loop wire here I see in each?
That's just temporary right now to power the servos. Later on I'll use separate batteries for the servos. So the radio will be on one pack, and then the servos will be on 2 large packs.
Okay. So by having the batteries split up, then we're actually going to get a measure of redundancy in what's going on here.
Right. I'll have one aileron and one elevator on one battery pack, and the other aileron and the other elevator on the other battery, or the second battery pack.
Cool.
And I'll probably actually use 2 receivers too.
Now the chips came from Radio Shack.
Right. They're, like you say, they're 4069 chips. Here's a data sheet on the National Semiconductor, but it's the same chip.
Okay.
It just has 6 inverters in there.
Okay, and what's the idea behind this?
Like I say, just to, instead of having to tie 4 servos right in parallel, where if you get one servo gets a little noisy, it will affect the other servos. This way I can isolate the signal going to each servo.
Oh, okay. I really like the idea of redundancy. Now, you're not going to split the flaps and the engines. You'll only power up and split, I guess, the elevators.
Right, just the flight
ailerons.
controls.
Okay.
You wouldn't want the batteries to kill one side of your throttles and not the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least you'd rather have them all doing the same thing.
I just really can't get this whole thing in one shot. It's just too big.
Yeah, that's 11 and a half feet of wing there.
Oh, this is awesome. We've been getting quite a bit of email. Folks have rather liked this segment. Now, I don't see a fuel tank, but I do see fuel lines.
Okay.
And the outboard, well, I do see, it looks like a Sullivan. What is that, a 12 or 14 ounce tank?
There's a 14-ounce tank in the outboard nacelles.
Right.
And because of the space where the wheel will retract, couldn't put the big tank in there.
Exactly.
So I have an 8 and a 6-ounce tank in series.
Oh, so you're using like a header tank?
Correct.
Oh, okay. That seems pretty straightforward. Wow, 138 inches of wing. This is a lot of balsa.
It is.
And what have we got here? Oh, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flap hinge points.
Right. Let me just plug a battery in real quick here, and I can show you the operation. Like I say, this is just a test rig right now.
Okay, so the Flying Fortress has split flaps.
Correct. And since they're kind of flexible, that's why I use 2 servos. I use one near to each end.
I see.
Yeah. Then I don't have to worry about them twisting too badly.
Okay, operate those. Oh, that's sweet. Now I see that you broke the wing panel outboard of the flaps. Is this very hard to remove?
No, they just slip right off of these tubes.
Oh, I see.
Just aluminum tube and short pieces of dowel just to make sure they don't rotate once they're put back in place. And then there will be a connector here that will come out for the servo
for the other
works the aileron.
Okay, you don't have to pull it out. I think we get the idea.
Stuck in there for now.
Cool.
So it's coming along. It's slow, but
and then these pins keep it from rotating.
Right. It'll slip on and just align the pins and
voila,
and
we're
it's
attached.
in place.
This is a beautiful, beautiful job. How about lifting the wing up a little bit and let us take a look at the servos?
Okay.
Okay, I can see what's going on here. Oh, I see what you meant about the header tank.
Right. The header tank is stuck up here.
And I can see the other one right in there.
Tank back there.
And the retracts. Oh, looks like you've got them hooked up.
Yeah, let's see.
Will they cycle?
Let's see if there's any airlift in the system. There goes the left one. There goes the right one.
Oh, scale operation. Beautiful.
And that's been pumped up since yesterday, so apparently there's no leaks.
Absolutely beautiful.
And they can see I have a small servo mounted in there for the throttles.
Right. And then the flap servos, I guess, are these bigger servos here. This will be hard to see. Yeah, it's sort of visible. Awesome. Well, you've been quite busy, and I don't envy you the task of sheeting this whole big wing. This thing looks like a surfboard. How do you do it and keep from having any problems with warping?
Well, I made up some little rigs to set it on. Let me get them.
What are these?
Okay, these pieces of wood, this matches the outside of the center rib plus the sheeting.
Right.
And then these particular ones match on the center section, the end rib.
Okay.
Same thing on the outside of the sheeting.
Right.
Okay. And then when they're basically secured in place, they are
Oh, I see. Okay. You don't have to do
here,
that.
and this other tip over here.
This other one will just fit right about here.
Right. And then when this is laid inverted on the bench, this will be a straight line to match the surface of the bench. And then that will keep everything from warping while I sheet the other side.
Of course, that presupposes the bench itself is straight.
Right. And that's why I have these extra boards on the end that just so I did adjust to make sure I got the twist out of the...
Oh, I see what you're talking about down there.
Right, because I have these doors that I use. They're pretty rigid, but just that little extra support helps keep them straight.
So the servos are all operating synchronized now?
Right.
Courtesy of the adapter. Oh yeah, we can see it quite clearly. And these are OS Max 70 surpasses, whereas the Gigant that we've seen before uses 6 of the 40.
Right.
Okay. You think this will be enough power?
I think so. I had the 52-pound Lancaster that had a slightly smaller wing, and it flew pretty good.
Oh, that's right. That's the one that we saw spin in at the contest in Goldsboro. And that was a 52-pound.
These engines available.
Oh, yeah. By coincidence.
Just by coincidence.
This is absolutely beautiful. I'd really like to see that gear cycle one more time. You think there's enough air in it?
We can find out.
I love this landing gear. Golly.
There goes the left. There goes the right.
Oh, this is fantastic. Larry, we'll come back again when you've got a little more progress. Thanks for your time.
Anytime.
This is our patented tubing bender. This happens to be for 5/32 tube. Take the brass tube, slip it in position anywhere you want the bend. Bring the handles towards you to whatever angle, degree of bend you want. No more kinks ever. Perfect bends all the time.
Kits and almost ready-to-fly models represent a mere fraction of the thousands of model airplane designs in the world. Through the RCM Plan service, you can avail yourself of the vast library of cutting-edge designs from the world's top designers. Whether it's sport, scale, or ducted fan, each plan is a full-size individual blue line print of the highest quality, and you'll also receive a reprint of the original construction article text to aid in building your next project. For a complete listing of RCM plans, order the RCM Plans catalog. A few issues ago, we reviewed Zenoa's baby gasoline-burning engine, the G23. Since that time, I've received a ton of letters and emails and even phone calls from folks asking, is there an alternative to the standard can-type muffler? In fact, there is an alternative, and it's this muffler, the 2102, available from the folks at Slimline. It's also available as a 2102S, and the S means smoke. The smoke preheater fits on the end and is held in with a pair of 440 screws. We can't look down in and see this one, so I got this other muffler, and if you look down in through the hole, you can see the finned aluminum for the preheater. Let me pull this out, and the smoke fluid goes in through the nipple, out through the little hole here, follows the screw-like circular pattern, thereby increasing the amount of time that the oil spends in contact with the hot aluminum. And this is one of the reasons that a Slimline smoke muffler is superior to other smoke mufflers. This is machined. This is a very high quality piece. There's a high temperature silicone O-ring, and that's what's going to keep the smoke oil from leaking out of the body of the muffler and making a mess later. This is a very, very nice piece. Of course, there are a few concerns that we have with a muffler. One is how well it fits the engine and how well it fits the airplane. Is it concealed? But that's the purpose of a pit-style muffler. Of course, another concern we have is the tonal quality. In other words, how loud is it? How well it muffles? Finally, we also have the concern of does it affect the performance? And that leads into another series of questions that I've been getting, and that's as to what we use for a tachometer. I like this TNC digital SensiTach. The nice thing about the SensiTach is that in addition to reading 2 or 3 blades, is that it has a ×10 multiplier, and this, by the way, is an option. It also has a hold position so that I can slide and freeze the reading so I don't have to bend over the engine to see what it's reading. Also, you'll notice that it's lighting me up with a little red glow, and that's because the digital SensiTach is not using a photoresistor like inexpensive tachometers that are usually available on the market. This is actually using a phototransistor, and part of the reason that it's using the LED to illuminate is that then you can get a reading on ducted fans which may be hidden inside the fuselage. In fact, another nice thing is that you can get it with a removable sensor if you order it this way, and then you can mount the sensor inside the airplane permanently. Very, very nice feature. By the way, the ×10 reading, that lets me get closer on the RPMs, but you don't even have to have the ×10, because if you'll notice it bouncing between 85 and 86, then you can interpolate. If it's flashing between the 5 and the 6 about evenly, that means that it's 85-50. Of course, if I go to the ×10 and it's reading 85-50, 5 and 85-54, then I can interpolate even further by how much time it flashes between the 5 and the 4. This is a test instrument quality tachometer. Now, don't expect it to be really inexpensive, like, 30 or 40 bucks. It's a good bit more than that. They can run up as high as $150 or $180 depending on the options. But the standard one, it's about $100. And trust me guys, that is well worth it because this is very accurate as a piece of equipment. The other thing that we've been using recently is an infrared temperature sensor. This one's manufactured by Raptor, and it's their MT4 model. They make an MT2, and the difference is that this one uses a laser for aiming. The way this works is that it'll either be set to Fahrenheit or centigrade, and in this case I'm reading 35.5 degrees. Well, obviously that's not Fahrenheit, that's got to be Celsius. I'll open it up here, flip the slide switch, and you'll notice it uses a 9-volt battery for power. And now I'm going to be reading Fahrenheit and reading 95 degrees or so. That's about right for the palm of my hand. You'll notice that after I release the trigger, it'll hold the reading for a moment, and that's how it conserves battery power as it shuts itself off. Rather nice. Of course, because it uses a laser, we have a warning label on it, and this isn't a toy. Fellas, don't be aiming this at somebody's eyes. The way it works is that the spot distance at which it's measuring is reflected in how far away I am from it. It's a 6-to-1 ratio. If the sensor is 6 inches away from what I'm reading, it's getting the temperature from about a 1-inch disc, like this. If I go to 12 inches, it's going to be a 2-inch disc, a bigger disc. 18 inches, a 3-inch disc, and so on. It's a 6-to-1 ratio. I really like the model that has the laser pointer in it because then I know I'm reading what I want to read. It's so accurate that I've been reading temperatures on the cylinder head, and I can see a difference between the front part, which is really exposed to the cooling blast of air, like right up here, around to the back, and I can see the temperature increase. In fact, if I slide it down and get on the muffler itself, well, I can really see a great increase in temperature because the muffler is running at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 420, something like that. The head, there's a good 30-degree variation between the front and the back of the head, and that's just an effective measure of the cooling blast that a propeller does. We're going to install this and we'll see what differences we get in performance. a few things become immediately apparent. Number one, there's not a huge tonal difference between the can muffler and the slimline pit-style muffler. It's not a lot louder, it's not a lot quieter either. But one thing I noticed is that we picked up between 100 and 150 RPMs, and that's good. This is a 15.8 propeller. The other thing I noticed is that this muffler runs a lot cooler, which is as we would expect it. This guy's steel, this is all aluminum, and there's a lot more mass to be draining, acting as a heat sink to remove heat from the whole system. The muffler was running a lot cooler. I didn't really notice much difference in the cylinder head temperatures, but then again, I wouldn't expect to see a huge difference there. It was interesting that at the intake, we actually were running quite cold, but that's because the gasoline is evaporating as it's vaporized, and that's natural to remove heat, and that's why it's running so much colder than what we would expect. Overall, I'd say that the fit and the finish of this system is excellent. It makes up perfectly. It doesn't touch anywheres. It's compact. It'll fit easily within the confines of a lot of giant scale airplanes. It's recommended. As far as the Raytec Mini-Temp, this is one handy device. The MT4 with the laser is about $100. The MT2 without the laser is about $80. I don't think that the $20 is worth saving. I really like having the pointer because then I know exactly what I'm aiming at. Still 95 degrees, by the way. Recommended. A few more things I'd like to show you. Let me move these out of the way. Recently, we built our helicopter, and I needed to get a remote glow plug connector for it. And I chose a remote headlock, and this is available from the guys at Sullivan Products. And what I like about it is it uses stainless steel and a brass element, and it fits very nicely, and the nice thing about is how it locks, and then it's in position and it won't come out. However, when we started working on our Hangar 9 Cub that has a Sato 90 TS engine, I realized I'd have to get two of these because I'd like to be able to fire off both glow plugs with just one headlight. And let me set this aside and I'll show you the solution. And this is another interesting product also made by Sullivan Products. And it's a remote headlock twin. And basically what's happened is they've anticipated our need for multi-cylinder engines, and it comes pre-wired, and this is pretty slick. I've now got the perfect way for lighting the fire in the twin. But that's not all. I've referred many times to the fact that I like to use a headlight primarily because it has a set screw here in the side that'll let me remove and replace the cell. With other of the twist-on type headlights or competing brands, these batteries are soldered in, and it's very difficult to get enough heat on the unit to replace the battery without ruining the cell. Once again, the guys from Sullivan come to the rescue. And this is their headlight, and it's a glow plug igniter, and it's part number 045. And the nice thing about it is that it's the same exact unit, but it comes without the battery cell. And let's take a look at this, and I'll go ahead and cut it open. And the neat thing about this is that it's the exact same headlight that we've always used, and it'll lock the glow plug into place. But, and let me slide this off, this is welded, and it's perfectly suited to take a C-cell. And the button goes in front, and it's spring-loaded right here. And then we have a set screw, and you'll put it in place like this, and then when I'll tighten the set screw down, and I'm going to have to cut away of the heat shrink on the side here. Because what we have to do is ensure that we get good contact here on the negative, and we've got the insulator. We don't want to mess with that. And it comes into position just like this. We'll tighten up the set screw. We have the cap to protect, and this other cap that comes down and slides over exactly the same. Now, occasionally you'll have need to reach into a glow plug, and the standard unit is going to be too short. And for that, the guys at Sullivan make an extended version, and it's basically the same thing, but we have a probe that's about twice as long. And as usual, it has the crimping that'll permit it to lock on. Really a pretty nice piece. Now, I've been asked before if Sullivan makes headlights that have a meter in them, and the answer is sure they do. And this is part number 038, and it has the meter, and let's go ahead and open it up and take a look at it. And it's the same Sullivan construction of the other ones, the difference being that it has the meter added into the top. Now, exactly like this other one, it has a set screw. It's right here, and I can replace the battery, because basically a NiCad battery in one of these things is good for a couple of years, maybe 3 years, but then it goes bad, and that would mean you'd have to buy a whole new unit. Now, I know a lot of guys will say, oh, what the heck, they're only 15, 20 bucks or however much one of these things costs exactly. But I'm really, I like to save a buck wherever I can. And when I can just buy a cell for about $4 and be back in business, hey, come on, this is a better thing. They also make a long version. They cover all the possibilities. Now, there's a couple of other things I'd like to show you. This is the glow plug connector and the professional version. And the difference is that one has the brass element, and the other one, the Pro version, has an all stainless steel element. And this is really nice, because often a lot of guys don't like to hang the element off of their engine. They don't like to have the battery hanging out. I haven't had a problem with it, but you get a nice long cord. It's maybe 2.5 feet long. It has the exact same stainless steel crimped element that's going to permit it to lock onto my glow plug again, just like that. But the advantage is that I can have a battery sitting away from the engine. And a lot of guys really like this, and it's not bad. I mean, it works quite well. And finally, I'd like to show you the charger that comes with these. And the advantage of this charger is that it has an LED which will light up while it's charging. That way, the little red glow, well, it'll keep you from forgetting it. Pretty neat thing, wouldn't you say? Now, let's talk about what we use to turn a 10.7 propeller. In my case, I've got an OS Max 46 FX. And the 46 FX is probably one of the better engines you can buy to power a 40 to 46 size airplane. The nice thing about the FX, the new ones have the remote mounted needle valve, and you'll put a little piece of fuel line. We have our carburetor. We're using 6 bolts to hold the head down. The supplied muffler that comes with the engine has adequate volume, and it runs quite well. The question is, can we improve OS Max's 46? I don't know. I've got a couple of things to show you. One is a cylinder and piston available from Saturn Hobbies of Australia. And what makes this unique is that, first off, it's going to be lighter than the part that's in the OS engine. But what's unusual is that the inside of the liner has a plasma coating, a kind of a ceramic material. When you look at it, it's kind of a dark gray, and the piston is a typical ABC type in that it runs up near the top and it starts to grab, which means that the engine will have to reach operating temperatures really before the fit will be just perfect. Now, will it make a difference in how the engine performs? Well, that's what we're hoping to answer. The other thing that I've got, this is a ultra thrust muffler, and it's available from the folks at Performance Specialties. If you compare it to the size of the standard muffler that comes with the OS, you can see that we have a pretty good difference in size, but the weight of the two units, well, it feels just about identical. This one might actually be lighter. I mean, it's really close. It bolts on the exact same way as the standard muffler, using the through bolts coming in from the side of the engine. I'm going to go and put this thing on the test stand in a few minutes and run it in, and when it's holding a good needle valve setting, we'll see what it's turning. Then we'll add the ultra thrust and see if it makes more power. Then we'll take it apart, we'll add the Saturn Hobbies liner and piston, and then see what we have. Boy, what's there not to like about an OS Max 46FX? It's turning this 10.7 propeller at about 12,500 RPMs. It's idling really well. Now we're going to see if we can improve it. We're going to add the ultra thrust muffler to it. This will really be interesting. We'll be back in a few moments. Wow, we're looking at 14,000, just over 14,000 RPM, a 1,500 RPM increase just by adding the ultra thrust muffler. The guys at Performance Specialties, they have a really neat accessory, and they make them for more engines than just the OS. This is recommended. Now I'll take the engine into the workshop, and on the workbench I'll strip it down and I'll swap out the piston and sleeve. Boy, if nothing else, replacing the steel sleeve with that manufactured by Saturn Hobbies of Australia is going to be a fairly significant weight difference. We're looking at 33 grams versus 11 grams for the aluminum plasma liner. The pistons should be about the same. And we're looking at about 8 grams for the piston. Yeah, our pistons weigh exactly the same, but there's a vast difference in the pistons. If you look, you can see the OS is a casting, and this is the OS in my right hand, and you can see how rough it looks on the inside. It even looks rough on the top of the piston. They start with a casting, and they machine it down. If you look at the band here, a little bit of shininess starting to happen. That's what happens as the engine starts to break in. The Saturn Hobbies of Australia piston starts off as a billet of aluminum, and it's carved out using a CNC machine, and it is a beautiful, beautiful finish on the piston. This one, I'm almost ready to finish putting the snap ring in, and that's this little wire right here. And let me go ahead and push it in, and you can hear it maybe click in, and there, it's now in position, and we're really ready to put the engine back together. Let me go ahead and slide the piston. I want to get the big end of the rod over the wrist pin, and that's the first step, and then I'll put the sleeve in. And we're almost there, and I'll have to kind of fiddle with this a little bit. There we go, and that snaps into place. And then we'll take the Saturn Hobbies liner, and we have a tiny little groove that lines up with the tiny pin that we have right here. And let's go ahead and start this in place. And these things, they're not really hard to do, but you have to kind of fiddle with them, and I just got it going. And I'll go ahead and I'll push it on down, and I'll line it up with that pin, and there. It's a perfect fit. This should just basically be a direct replacement, and I'll put the brass head gasket back in place. And while we've got this, let's take a look, and I'll keep the bolts from falling through. We have a rather shallow squish band and a hemispherical combustion chamber. Really pretty nice. And as you'll see, I'm using a glow plug that does not have an idle bar. The OS engines don't ship with glow plugs, so I end up using a K&B high performance glow plug, and this is the exact same one with which I started running the engine. It's run through the tests, maybe 8 tanks of fuel with the standard muffler on it, about 3 tanks of fuel with the ultra thrust tune pipe muffler on it, and it's still going good, and we'll just keep on using it till it burns out. Get these screwed on in here. The engine is overall, there's really nothing to not like about an OS 46. It's far and away one of the most consistent engines that you'll come across. And let me go ahead and tighten this down. And as usual, we're using a crossing pattern, and there I've got them just snugged. And I'll start here, and I'll jump one, tighten it, jump one again, tighten it. Now go all the way across the cylinder, tighten, skip one, skip one. This is the last one. And our back plate fits in, and the machining on OS, it's absolutely beautiful. This is very typical of the quality that you get in an OS Max engine, and that's why I say that there's nothing to dislike about one. There's just basically one of the most popular engines in the world, and this is why. The quality, these things run good. 12,500 RPM on a 10.7 is nothing to sneeze at, believe me. 14,000, of course, now we owe strictly to the ultra thrust tune muffler, and this is basically working as a tune pipe, and that's why you get an extra 1,500 RPMs. Now, as I put the drive washer on, you've got to make sure that the little washer behind it is in place, and without it, you're going to tear up a bearing. And I'll go ahead and there's compression. Let me go ahead and put my prop down on it. By the way, this is a Dubro spinner nut, and these are available from Dubro in various different thread combinations. This particular one is a 1/4 28, and what I like about this especially is that I don't have to worry about mounting a spinner, and it makes it much easier to put an electric starter on an engine. And I guess we're about ready to go put this guy back on the test stand. Wow, we added another 150 RPM just by adding the Saturn Hobbies of Australia's plasma liner. The advantage really of the plasma liner is that it will probably outlast the engine. For sure it'll outlast the piston, so it'll be the last liner you'll ever buy. This is really impressive. The combination of the Saturn Hobbies of Australia liner, along with the Performance Specialties Ultra Thrust tuned muffler, and yes, you can make the fabulous OS Max 46 FX a little better. I'm very impressed. The World Model Manufacturing Company is proud to offer discriminating modelers the finest model aircraft in the world. Using balsa and plywood, master craftsmen hand-build each model to exacting specifications. Then, using popular iron-on films, high-visibility color schemes finish the model. For learning, trainers range from the 54-inch Super Frontier 20 through the popular 64-inch Super Frontier 40 on up to the majestic 81-inch wingspan Super Frontier Senior. Supplied with premium accessories, all you add are the radio and engine. Visit our website for the dealer nearest you.
JR's 600 series radios have always offered the most asked for programming features at a great price. JR's new XP652 features the same super smooth gimbals used in JR's more expensive radios, as well as FM PCM modulation and both airplane and heli software. In addition, the XP652 features exponential rates, 2 programmable mixes, helicopter stunt trims, 5 model memory, and CCPM mixing, yet remains very affordable. Step up to JR's XP652.
What we have here is a scale instrument panel for Hangar 9's J3 Cub, and this thing is a work of art. Its part number HAN 183, and this will just glue in and basically is going to give us a better scale look than maybe a decal would have. These things are absolutely beautiful. They're three-dimensional. You can see the instruments. These things look nice. The other thing is we have some J3 Cub wheels from the guys at Dubro. And the reason for that is that unlike the wheels that come with the kit that use a wheel collar on the inside and the outside, these will only have one wheel collar hidden that goes on the inside, and the nice thing is that the Cub hubcap is actually held in place with 3 little tiny screws. These are the 1/5 scale J3 Cub wheel from Dubro. The other thing I'd like to show you, and this is really important for increasing the scale detail of an aircraft, and that's a pilot figure. These are a soft latex rubber, and you'll fill it up with cotton or some kind of batting material, and then paint them, and they'll make a beautiful, beautiful addition to the inside of the airplane. I've actually got a pair of them, and when I get them painted up, I'll guarantee you it'll make a big difference in how the aircraft looks. Good looking wheels, instrument panel, pilots. One last thing, very, very few airplanes are balsa wood color on the inside. I'm going to use some black paint, and I'm going to paint all of this and the inside, and I'm going to paint the firewall area to fuel proof it. I'm going to be using Krylon's polyurethane black paint, and it'll really make the inside of the airplane disappear so that you don't notice it. Inside this box is one of the most beautiful, old-timer looking model airplanes, and the fabulous thing about it is that you can just buy it. It's manufactured in Japan by the K&S company. We know them here in the States as KSJ, and they're more famous for their beautiful helicopter accessories, perhaps the finest in the world. And to get an idea of the quality, take a look at the vertical fin. It's been covered in a translucent clear material, and they don't take the easy way out. Look at the black trim. The black trim follows a scallop shape. That's not easy to do, and that's only the beginning, because if you look very carefully, you'll see that the vertical fin has a widened plate which is going to reinforce it, and these little pieces have been covered individually, pre-glued on. This is fabulous craftsmanship. In fact, even the little holes for the control horns have already been drilled. When you look at the horizontal stabilizer in the elevator, gosh, it's just more quality. Once again, the holes for the control horns are already drilled, and this is difficult to see, but this little piece right here, and similarly on the other side, the covering has been removed. In other words, you don't have to take out the X-Acto and remove the covering before you can glue it on. This is ready to go. Gosh, just the fact that they use scallops and smooth shapes impresses me a lot, because it's not easy to get something like that and iron it on and have it come out right. Now this is our sheet of decals, and they look pretty nice, and they're going to add just a touch of color to the aircraft and all the wings. We have a polyhedral wing, and look at the structure. It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful. I'm amazed at how pretty this airplane is. This is absolutely going to be a change of pace. If you've been used to always having to go to the flying field, maybe driving 20 or 30 miles, well, this is going to be a revolution, because now with the very quiet electric motor, you'll be able to fly in a park, pretty much schoolyard, anywhere you want. Nice little touch. Look here on the wing at the leading edge and at the trailing edge. This is a little piece of plywood that's been put on there to reinforce, because what will happen is that when you put the rubber bands on the wing, well, that would normally crush. Now look at the fuselage, and this is a work of art. It's a pylon style, and I mean, this is straight out of the 30s. The weight, it's incredibly light. You can just barely see the weave. They've made the extra step to keep the lightness into the aircraft, but look at the details. For example, the spinner ring, or I should say the front of the fuselage, well, where the motor will mount, that's aluminum. It's already glued in place. Inside, and I know this will be difficult to see, but there is a carbon fiber servo mount, and this is just fabulous. This is the highest quality craftsmanship I've ever seen in an almost ready to fly airplane. And there's just more. For example, all of the accessories are individually bagged. This is our motor. Look at the absolutely tiny control horns, our propeller and spinner. We even have Velcro tape, black rubber bands. This is fantastic detail. Black rubber bands. They don't want them to show. And look at this. These are the wheel collars. They're anodized purple. They're made of aluminum. Everything in the aircraft is beautiful. Even little tiny things like the carbon fiber wing joiner set is individually packaged. These guys, they really know how to go first class. Assembly will actually be trivial. Let me move this aside. Looking at the manual indicates that there's only 12 steps for assembly. And those steps start off first with the push rods for the rudder and elevator, and then it proceeds on through to installing the servos, then the horizontal and vertical fin. The motor, well, for that, I'm going to install a slim 18BE made by Schulze, and ask your dealer to call the folks at RC Direct to get this in for you. This is one of the best electronic speed controls money can buy, and it's not terribly expensive. We used one in the last issue, and the nice thing about it is that it has 3 different positions depending on if you're using a gearbox or not. Really pretty nice. It's almost hardly worth showing you how to build this thing because it's so simple. I mean, one of the steps out of the 12 is actually how to put on the prop. Not really all that tough. We finally end up with step 11, which is where I'll be using cyanoacrylate adhesive. I like to use this Slow Zap, and this is really a nice glue for this job. We're only going to put the glue on one of the wing joiner rods, or actually on both rods, but only in one wing panel, because it's a 2-piece wing, which makes it really nice to travel. And this Slow Zap, this is really the heat. This won't take long to assemble. I'll see you at the field. Eric, it looks like the battery's peaked.
Yep, we're all set to go. We'll just undo the charge cord. It has a real simple switch. Get a couple bands on and we'll be ready to go. These are real fun machines. They're made for one thing, and that's fun. Check these controls out. Check this motor out. Yeah, let's go.
Alright, you ready to sample it? Whatever.
Let's do the thermal, I get well, the thermal around there somewhere. Nice thing about it is it's so lightweight that you can take it up there and find a thermal and stay up for as long as you like. Find a couple thermals. There we go. I think that's one right there. Pull the power off and tie it around a little bit. See how the wing is being bobbled by the thermal. Not sure where it is.
I think it may be to your right.
Let's go over there and take a look. Yeah, something's over there. Let's head over here. Little sink there. We're going to get back on the power and take a look. Yeah, I'd say we're in some sync there, but let's do some circles down low.
Okay.
It's pretty maneuverable, it's got good response. Of course, you want to get the throttle up to get the airspeed up the most, but especially when it's a little gusty like it is now. But it'll fly nice and slow. Let's see if we can get it hanging on the prop here.
I can't believe how long the battery lasts.
Yeah, it's good for about 10 minutes. Got a 600 milliamp battery in this, and it's a very efficient motor drive system. Take it up.
We got 2 minutes to tape, Eric. Need to be thinking about landing and setting up.
Okay, let's see. We got it. Can we move backwards and get an area that's? We can get out of the way here. Triple Tree is just a great flying site. I hope everyone will come out to the Joe Knoll, and of course there's the Masters aerobatic tournament is held here, and same thing with the Triple Tree Aero Tow.
Grass is a little bit long right now for this.
A little bit, but
oh, look at that. Up for a little TV, but nothing's on? Pop in a ModelSport magazine, your 2-hour window into the world of RC. Regular segments like Talk Radio, About Engines, Rotate, Workbench, Flightline, and more. For convenience and to save shipping and handling, they're available through hundreds of retail locations. Check our website for the dealer nearest you, including top mail order specialists. Back issues, gift subscriptions, we're as near as your phone. Clubs welcome. Why take years to learn what the pros know? ModelSport Magazine. Well, folks, this almost brings to a close another jam-packed 2-hour-long issue of ModelSport. In the last issue, we posed the question, should the RC system switch be pushed to be turned on or pulled to be turned on? With 712 respondents, there was no clear-cut answer. 51% said push, 49% said pull. I said pull also. However, the winner said push, and he's a beginner. His name's John Dozier, and he's from Birmingham, Alabama, and he selected the World Model Manufacturing's Super Frontier 40. Our next survey question is this one. Is an electric model suitable for learning to fly? Really pretty simple. go to the website and vote, and the winner gets his pick from amongst 3 different airplanes. Let me tell you what's coming up in the next issue. To begin with, we have a travel visit to Chicago for the National Model and Hobby Show, where we see the latest stuff. Then we've got J.R. Propo's excellent Ergo 46 CCPM helicopter, and it's clothed in a beautiful Robinson R22 fuselage. Now, to power this helicopter, we're going to use OS Max's hot new 50 SXH, and this is a powerhouse. To control the tail, we've got CSM's new ICG 400 gyroscope, and this is the famous heading lock gyroscope. These are the guys that invented heading hold. Now, controlling it, we're going to be using JR's beautiful 8103, and this is a fabulous radio. It has a computer screen up top where you'll be able to see your curves. This thing is just, oh, this is a work of art. We've gotten a lot of static from guys asking us, when are we going to do a full-on aerobatic airplane? The answer is coming up in the next issue, where we feature World Model Manufacturing's CAP 232. And this is a 73-inch wingspan airplane with over 960 square inches of wing. Now, normally I would power something like that, perhaps with a 4-stroke engine. But we've got something special. We're going to be featuring Wolf's new Predator. And the Predator and a 120 weigh about the same. But the Predator, it's really special. To begin with, it's a 30cc engine, and the really neat feature is that while it runs on glow, simply by adding a CH Electronics module, adjusting the needle valves from about 2.5 turns open down to about 3/4 of a turn open, I can run this same engine on gasoline. And remember, this thing weighs like a 120, and with 30 cc's, oh boy, this Cap, she's really going to fly. Last thing, we've got some new adhesives. This is Pacer's Z-Poxy, and this is the 30-minute stuff. This is what I like to use when I'm joining wings and fastening tail feathers. We also have Zappo, and this is a CA+, and it's an odorless CA. This is the friendly stuff to use in your workshop if you're bothered by fumes. And finally, this is the best stuff in the world for attaching canopies. It's Formula 560. Believe me, guys, we have the adhesives we need to put together our airplane. Well, now we're really out of time. I'll see you in the next issue.